everyone, I'm Rachel Tessman from StampYourArtOut.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Andover, Minnesota in the US, and today I'd like to share with you some outside-the-box ideas that I created with the contents of the March 2020 7th Anniversary Paper Pumpkin Kit from Stampin' Up! Titled, No Matter the Weather. These monthly kits come straight to my mailbox and contain everything I need to make fun, creative paper crafting cards and projects. This month's kit contains supplies to make 12 3.5 by 5 inch uplifting spring-themed note cards, 4 of 3 of these kinds. It also contains directions, tips, photos, details about the kit, a link to a how-to video to help guide me in assembling, and 2 items that I can use over and over again even after the consumables for my kit are used up. This mini ink pad and an exclusive stamp set. Plus, because this is an anniversary kit, Stampin' Up! Included a bonus stamp set with even more coordinating images, a flyer with a few inspirational ideas on it, and it all came packaged in this special edition box, which you could totally re-gift something in. A clear block, which was included free with my first ever kit for mounting and using my stamps, and my scissors are the only extra supplies that I really need to provide. Paper pumpkin kits are just $22 plus tax per month in the US. Shipping is included. You control which months you get your kits, and there's no commitment or obligation. These kits are produced through Stampin' Up!, so the colors, images, and supplies always coordinate with many other Stampin' Up! Products. I'll be using some of these as I share my alternate projects. You can find the items I use listed below and linked to my online store. You can also look below for links to learning more about paper pumpkin kits, starting your subscription through me so I can spoil you with exclusive ideas, gifts, and prizes, joining my Paper Pumpkin fan club on Facebook where you can see even more alternate project ideas shared daily, and if you're watching my video on YouTube, a link to my website where I've shared photos of these projects. If you're looking for ideas for past kits, visit my website at StampYourArtOut.com. Click on Paper Pumpkin in the top menu, then choose Recent or Older Posts. Since March of 2013, when Paper Pumpkin first began, I've been creating and sharing alternate projects so Paper Pumpkin subscribers can see that there's so many more possibilities, so many more options with those kit supplies. And that's what I'll be doing in this video. I'm excited to create with you, so let's get started. First of all, I want to let you know that I substitute a few of the basics to make my projects quicker and easier to assemble in my videos. Instead of using the single clear block that came in my first kit, I use Stampin' Up's ergonomic blocks. I also use the large ink pad rather than the ink pad that comes in each kit. And I use snail adhesive quite often when glue dots aren't needed. I also use these, but most of the time I use this. And you can find these items in the online store. I absolutely love the bright and cheerful colors that are in this kit, and the rain boots, so adorable. So I was very inspired when I opened everything up, and I thought how fun it would be to triple the cards in the kit. So instead of making 12 cards, we're going to make 36. And those cards are going to be full-size cards by just adding the Silver Edge cards and envelope pack, couple of them, and an extra ink pad color in Petal Pink. So here's how I worked out the math. You're going to have in your kit supplies to make 4 of each of these 3 different kinds of cards. So I took and I divided the kit into 4 separate piles. So 1, 2, 3 cards would be in each of those piles. And so the supplies for this card, the supplies for this card, and the supplies for this card are all sitting right here. This is 1/4 of the kit. With the twine, you want to make sure that you're not using more than 65 inches total. I've already done the math for you, so you don't have to figure that out. And I'm going to walk you through taking these 3 cards and multiplying them by 3 to get 9 cards from them. We're going to add in 9 of these Silver Edge cards and 9 of the envelopes. So that means we don't need these envelopes at all. which is fine because we're making them into full cards anyways, right? So these envelopes are going to become instead designer paper layers. I'm going to show you how to cut those in just a second. And so you'll want to punch out all of your pieces, and we're going to use both stamp sets because everybody who got this kit got both stamp sets, so why not use them all, right? Okay, oh, and one more thing is make sure that you're only using 1/4. So I've already cut my sheet into fourths. Use just 1/4 of your dimensionals. In order to get more dimensional pieces, you can always cut them in half if you want to, and then you can lift up even more pieces than I did on my finished cards. So let's start with the envelopes. We're going to grab our trimmer, and we're going to cut, like I've shown you in past videos, just a little bit off each side here. Cutting a little bit off each side allows you to open up your envelopes with nice clean cuts on the edges. We're not going to worry about how far in because you could really go further in than that if you'd like to. We don't want to have this white edge on our finished cards that we're doing, but let's go ahead and now look at the score line that is up here at the top where the flap is, and we're going to cut just underneath that so that we're not including that little bumped or raised up area. So you want to have good lighting. You want to position your envelope this way so that this little bump here is on the right hand side, and then we're going to trim. You want to make sure you have a sharp blade too, because if you happen to cut right on a score line and you don't have a sharp blade, you're going to get a very frayed edged look. This piece, don't throw that away. You can use that. Now we're going to go ahead and turn it this way. So just a 1/4 of a turn, and we're going to trim so that we're getting that white edge off of there. So that's why, again, it doesn't matter how far you go in as long as it's not too far. And then this way, we're going to cut at 5.5 inches, just so we have some overlap, because we're actually going to take this piece and we're going to cut it into 2, and then we want those pieces to kind of overlap each other on the front of our card. So we're going to cut here, and then we're going to rotate again, and we're going to cut at 4 inches. So now what we have is a 4-inch by 5.5-inch piece. I'm going to do that to the other two. So now we have these finished pieces here that are just a little bit too long for the front of our card. We want to separate them right here in the middle. Now there's also a raised or bumped up edge there because of the score line, and we want to cut so that our bumped up edge is actually right above, because this is the side of the white that we're going to use because of this piece here. We're going to use this side. So we want to have that little bumped part right above, so it gives kind of a nice little texture to where this piece is going to connect with this. So when you're trimming, just make sure that that bumped up edge is over on this side and the color is to your left. Try not to go too far over, but you want to go far enough over so that when you overlap those two pieces, you can still see the little bump here. The next step is to cut our 3 card bases from the kit in half. And again, you're working with a score line in here, so if you don't have a sharp blade, you might get some fraying. It's better to cut on either side and just have a really thin piece that you remove if you don't have a sharp blade, or just to make sure that you're cutting carefully. We have another piece that we're going to cut. We're going to cut this piece here, and we're going to cut it to 3.5 inches by 3/8 of an inch. And now we have a little strip of green there. We're going to stamp onto our So Saffron envelope lid with the boots outline image in our bonus stamp set and our basic gray ink. When you're stamping on here, be aware of this adhesive area here. So Let's go ahead and stamp off to the left a little bit here, like so, okay? And we're going to do some fussy cutting around there. And then you have two other envelope flaps here, and we're going to stamp on the white side. You'll notice here that you actually have even more of this flap, so why not just use that side as well? So we're going to stamp some boots again here, and we're going to stamp onto one of these other pieces. So if you have other projects where you might be able to use this pretty paper, then go ahead and set that aside and stamp your boots onto the one that you think you'll use less. I've brought in my trimmer again because right now we want to fit these pieces, these card halves, into the center of our foil edged cards. And you'll see here that they don't quite fit evenly. So there's like an extra white edge on either side here that's about 1/8 of an inch. So if we take 1/8 plus 1/8, that's 1/4 or 2/8. And so what we want to do is we want to trim off 1/4 of an inch on all of these pieces to make them more centered. And you kind of have to look at each piece, especially if it has the printed design on it. This one here, we definitely would want to cut off the top and not the bottom. We don't want to remove that grass down there. If you do have any cards with any color on the edge, you could remove that at this time too. But we're just going to trim these all up so that they are 4 3/4 inches by 3.5. And now we're going to take our paper snips and we're going to start cutting around our boots. Now the white boots, we're going to cut so that we have about 1/16 of an inch all the way around. So we have a nice little border. And on the yellow boots, we're actually going to cut right up to the line. And I'll show you that in just a second. And when you're cutting, you'll notice that when I was trimming with my scissors, I was actually moving the paper more so than the scissors. For this piece, we're going to cut off the top and the bottom of each boot so that we have more of a whitish area. The top, of course, is not going to be super white because it's mostly colored in by the stamp image, but we want to have a little bit of a sole on our boot and a little bit of a rim here. So what we're doing is we're doing paper piecing. We're decorating or coloring in the boot without having to have extra coloring tools. And then all we need to do is turn these pieces over, apply our adhesive, and the lines on the design will help to keep your any kind of flaws that you might have in your trimming to a minimum, because you've got, of course, the thickness is going to make up for it once you lay that piece down. I'm going to add my boots to this pile over here with my card-based pieces, and I'm going to bring in the envelope pieces, the little things that I have to coordinate with them, and we're going to go ahead and assemble our first 3 cards. This is the toughest one, so we'll start with that. And we're actually going to stamp the message, let's see, what does it say? Let love grow. So we're opening up our basic gray ink pad, and we're going to stamp that on the all white and non-flawed side with our basic gray and the Let It Love stamp. We'll stamp that somewhat in the middle and about, I'm looking at my other card over here, about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom and 1 inch from the top. So you can see that looks pretty good here. We're going to actually put twine around this. That's the toughest part, is to take and wrap our twine around that white piece, because it's not a stiff piece of cardstock. It's much thinner. It's envelope quality paper, right? And we want to wrap, let me think what piece. We're going to do 26 inches. So let's grab a ruler. You actually have a ruler on your, I think you do. Sometimes they send, yep, you do. So you actually have a ruler in your instruction booklet here too, a 9-inch ruler. So you can use that if you wish. We're going to cut 26 inches of twine for this card. And we might as well, since we have it out here, I'm going to grab my scissors. That's a sign for ribbon. It's much sharper. I do that. I'm not sure if you guys do that. If you're a crafter, it's a wise thing to do. Mark one of your paper snips or scissors with a ribbon, so that indicates that you only want to cut ribbon and fabric with that, and then the other one you can cut your paper to your heart's content. Paper dulls scissors, and so you want to have a nice sharp one when you're working with fibers and fabric. So let's do a 28-inch piece for our other card that we'll need to do later. And then we need 6 for that last one. About 6. These are all approximates. So we'll set those pieces aside. And we'll grab our 26-inch piece and we'll start wrapping. And the ribbon, or the bow, is actually going to go on the right-hand side. So I like to hold my thumb where I'm going to place that bow and then have about 5-6 inches sitting off to the side here. And I just start wrapping like this. And I think the back side, if the back side is not crisscrossing, it's easier to have it flatter on your card. So we're going to not crisscross that, which means this piece is going to get crisscrossed on the top. All right, so we've got our strands here, and we're going to bring them together and tie a knot, keeping everything nice and flat. You don't want to pull hard because you've got very thin paper. It's not cardstock. So we're going to hold it flat. We're going to hold on to the middle, and then we're going to tie a knot here. If you need a friend or a family member to do that for you, that might help. Okay, so we've got our piece tied in a knot, and now we can easily tie our bow. And if you have any kind of twisting and looping here, you can always pull and adjust on the end and on the bow at the same time, and that'll kind of help to flatten things out. Now my bow is in a really good spot. I'm not going to worry about this, but if you have your bow too far to the middle or whatever, you can always take and fold up or curve your cardstock and then adjust it. So this is good. I like that. Let's bring in one of our card bases. We're going to grab a bone folder. A bone folder helps you to curl cardstock and burnish adhesive. It also helps you to crease your cards so that when you have them in front of you, they're lying pretty darn flat. So now we're going to grab our snail adhesive and we're going to put some of that on the back side of the green striped pattern, and that's going to go up towards the top with 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And I think I put it down too soon. Hang on. Try that again. Looking at all 3 sides. The bottom side, if it's, not good here, it doesn't matter because you're only working with these edges in here. This one's going to go next, and it's going to go right over the top. See how it overlaps somewhat? So when you flip it over, you want to make sure that there's no crisscrosses in there. Put your adhesive along there. You may even want to put adhesive right directly on top of the twine to help hold it down. And that's going to line up with the bottom and sides so that you have that 1/8 inch border continuing. This piece is going to get propped up right here with dimensionals, and I think I'm going to just shift this up a little bit if I can. There we go. And now we're going to we have our small amount of dimensionals here, so if you want to use less, you certainly can, but I'm just going to stick one there, one at the bottom, and one at the bottom over here. Peel off the backings and set that right in like this. And if the ends of the ribbons are too long, you can come in and trim them. And now you have one of your finished cards. Let's do the second one. So let's grab our envelope base, or our card base. Let's fold it, give it a good crease, and we're going to go on to the yellow one, the So Saffron Yellow. 1/8 inch of a border all the way around. Making sure we're on the correct side. Now you could stamp this first. In fact, I always recommend stamping first, but you need to first adjust where these boots are going to go. On one of my finished ones, because I did a bunch of these before the video, I had my words a little bit too far off to the right, so I'm going to stamp them about 1/2 inch over from the left hand side instead. And I'm using the stamp that says "I believe in you." And now we can add that to the bottom here. And you wouldn't even necessarily have to use this white if you want a thicker silver border. And I'll show you what I mean on the next card. Let's add dimensionals. And I'll show you here, this is where you could trim a dimensional in half because you don't have a really large base down here. So if you just stuck a couple halves down there, you'd still have that lift without using up all your dimensionals. So this piece is now going to come over here and get positioned right next to those words like that. Okay, so there's our second card. On our next one, our third one that's made with the envelope pieces, I'm just going to show you what I meant by you don't even need the white, because you've got this silver border going around the whole thing. So if you were to actually trim up your envelope even shorter, you could really just use the white space that's already provided on your card. That is, if you like that larger silver border. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to bring in my scrap paper, my grid paper, and I think I'm going to use this side of it. You can get this grid paper, by the way, in the online store as well. It says Inspire, Create, Share on one side, and then it has the beautiful flowers on the other side that I thought coordinated really well with the colors in the kit. So we're going to stamp the grass image now. Let's move these out of the way. We've already done those. We're going to stamp this grass image along the bottom portion of the pink. The bunny is going to be positioned about here on our card, and so we're first going to stamp the grass that's going to appear right behind the bunny. So if you just kind of eyeball it and stamp just below, then you've got a nice background that really shows off your cute little guy there. Okay, and then these pieces of grass, again shadowy looking grass, can just get stamped a little bit lower so that they're not as dominant off to the left and the right. And now you've got these little fun clumps of grass. Okay, let's move this out of the way, bring our card back in, and we're going to go ahead and add this to the front of our card. 1/8 inch border all the way around. This piece is going to go on next, making sure you're using the correct side. Now when I lay this down on here, I'm not going to stick it down yet. I just want to kind of see where that bunny is going to go. And I think I stamped my grass a little low. So I think I'm going to trim off just a little bit more of this white. Love having a trimmer. A trimmer is an awesome tool to have if you are going to try to do alternate projects with the paper pumpkin kits. I trimmed off 1/8 inch. We'll see if that helps. On my other card, I have a thinner border. I have only like a 1/16 inch showing on the other set of 9 cards I did. So the grass sits a little bit higher on those cards. Okay, that looks good. So now we're going to put our bunny in here. And we're going to position the hearts. Those are going to go in the upper right. And the words are going to come down here to kind of go with our bunny. So let's go ahead and ink this up and stamp it near our bunny. And now we can go ahead and add this to the front of our card. We're going to add the bunny with a dimensional. You don't need a lot. You can just grab one and prop him right above those words. And then this little guy is going to get 1/4 of a dimensional. So when you come in here, you can just trim the edge of your dimensional sheet and you got a nice tiny one that will fit behind the heart. And then the other one is going to receive a glue dot from the kit, because that is when those glue dots really come in handy when you're using you know, like ribbon or some small embellishment or a tiny little piece that you have to stick on. So let's grab those two and balance out the card a bit by sticking them in the upper right hand corner. So there is our third card, and those are all done with the envelopes and some extra images. Now let's bring in these pieces again, and we're going to do all of our white only backgrounds. So we'll grab all of those. We're going to get creative with the stamps. For the first card, this one requires not too much stamping, but we're going to bring in that little tiny flower and we're going to stamp that with the petal pink. And then with our basic gray color, we're going to stamp that sentiment that we just used, and that's going to go in the upper right. First, let's go ahead and stamp that in the upper right, leaving about 3/4 of an inch on the top and the sides. And then in that little space in the upper right of that is where we can place that flower. Now sometimes if this ink is still a little moist on here, it will pick up that color. So you'll want to just kind of use some scrap paper and make sure that there's no gray ink on there when you go in to add some more flowers. And for these other flowers, we're going to grab those boots that look like this. Those are going to come down here, and they're going to be positioned about this high off the card because we have this little edge here too that we're going to put down here. So we're going to grab and put it about there. It's about 3/4 of an inch up, and we're going to ink up our flower and stamp that about here. And then we'll stamp another one right above about there. And that's just to add a little bit, I don't know, of a design behind the boots that kind of carry over and balance out the flower that's up here. We want this piece to go across the bottom, and so this is going to go up on dimensionals. So I think what we'll do is we'll stick this up on dimensionals first. We just need 1, 2, and then like a 1/2 dimensional should work. So we can just cut from the edge there and stick that over here for a little support. And that's going to go here. Oops, a little higher. And then this strip, because it's 3/8 of an inch wide, that is the width of the snail. It's perfect. So you can get it right under there and stick that down like that. And we're using 1/4 of the sheet of raindrops. So we're going to grab, and oops, I'm losing a few of them. We're going to grab, because I started using them and then I was like, oh no, I need those for the video. So we're going to grab 3 of the ones that are just circle shapes. I'm going to grab my take your pick tool. Much easier to use with this. So you're going to lift off your raindrops, and they are going to become, the round ones are going to become flower centers. All right, so there is the last piece, and this is just going to get placed right in the center of our card base. So we'll grab another card base, grab our bone folder, give it a good crease. We want to have this lifted up on dimensionals. I know you're worried about my dimensionals, but they will last, I promise. Again, you could use, you know, 1/4 size, or 1/2 size I should say, 1/2 size dimensionals here if you want to. And that's going to go right here, so we see a little white border, but we also see the silver border. And white on white is a different kind of white, so when you put it up on dimensionals, it gives that white that's more of a softer white, a little bit more of a shadow, so it's meant to look different. So there is our fourth card. Let's do this next one. This next one is fun in that it's super easy. We're just going to grab all of these boots. I've seen some people taking these boots and cutting them into sections so that you have, you know, 5 different cards that you could make with different boots. We're going to use them all together, and this is where our 28 inches of twine comes in. So again, this is where I want my bow to be, is kind of over here. So I'm holding my 5 to 6 inches off to the side, and then I'm going to wrap this way. And I don't want the twist in the back. So I just check to make sure. Let's do our knot here. This is more cardstock quality, so it's a little bit easier to tie around without it bending on you. And now we've got a knot. We're going to shift it just a little bit. We're going to tie our bow. And you don't need a lot of dimensionals on this piece. 1, 2, 3 should do it. Those are going to get positioned centered, so that's why I shifted this over, but we're going to move it back afterwards. So we're going to center, and we're going to place these about 1/2 inch from the bottom. We want this up a little higher. We want it above our dimensionals back there. So it's going to be 1/2 inch from the bottom, 1/2 inch from the sides, like that. And because it's not holding on to the dimensionals, I can take this now and bend this a little bit and shift that twine again. I think. I must have gotten the dimensional on it. Yeah, it stuck to one of them. That's okay. That's okay. On the other one, I did not stick it to the twine to the dimensionals, but it looks like they're holding on to that twine pretty tight. And that's okay, because I was only going to move that like 1/8 inch. We're fine. Okay, the sentiment that I thought would go great with these boots is the one that says, no matter the weather, we're in it together, because you've got all those boots there. So we're going to stamp that somewhat off to the upper right. And then I'm going to grab one of my small heart stamps. I didn't do this on the first card, but I think it's going to look really cute. And we're going to just stamp a tiny pink heart, because that's a lovey-dovey kind of cutesy thing to say, isn't it? No matter the weather, we're in it together. And now I've got a nice cute little heart off to the right. This piece is going to be put up onto dimensionals onto the front of our next card base. Let's grab a card base, crease it, add our dimensionals, and here, let's just, to be safe, let's use the edges. How does that sound? And there's our 5th card. Our next one with the white is actually going to be more of a vertical card, and we're going to use that front door stamp image. I thought that was kind of fun. This would be a great card for someone who's getting a new house, moving in, but depending on the sentiment, you could even have, you know, this become like a wedding or engagement card or something, because you know, when people get married, they get a new house. So let's just stamp that somewhat in the middle here. And then the stamp that is meant to be more like a shadow underneath the boots, it actually also looks like really fast rain, like you know, sheets of rain coming down, depending on how you stamp it. We're going to stamp that with the same basic gray ink, but we're going to do that in the upper left-hand corner, really close to the white edge. And We're going to stamp that in the lower right-hand corner, really close to the white edge. So now what it becomes is kind of like a frame of wood, right? So that kind of carries on the theme from the house. We'll take our piece here. This is going to be stamped on with the Let Love Grow sentiment. This will make a perfect wedding or engagement card. And that's going to be popped up on dimensionals. Just need 2. We're going to grab our 6 inches of twine. So this is going to cover the front step area a bit. We only want to focus on the door, and we want this to be centered. The further down you have this, the more it kind of interferes with this image. So you want to keep it somewhat in the center. We're going to take our 6 inches of twine and tie a little tiny bow like that. And again, let's bring in the glue dots from the kit. We're going to place one on the back side of this. Kind of push it down on there. Get your fingernail in there, or take your pick tool and peel off the backing, and then roll that glue dot towards the center. So it kind of overlaps onto itself. And then we're going to make that come out from the upper left of the sentiment piece here, like that. And to carry over some more of that pink, we're going to put these on. So we'll need 3 of them with glue dots. I have to say, when I was designing these cards, these 3, the ones where I just used the white, were the most challenging. But I think that this silver edge note card, or silver edge card base, really helps to spice it up a little bit. So now we're going to grab in our remaining pieces, and for that we have Our Lady with the Boots. We're going to pair that up with this piece here. Our Sunnier Sky, we're going to pair that up with the yellow boots. And then we're going to do the pink boots and this stitched looking circle. It's not stitched necessarily because on the other side you don't see the stitching go through. So that's a printed image on there. Just be careful of that. You don't want to screw up, I guess, on one side and then flip it over and go, uh-oh. All right, so now we're going to stamp some sentiments and some images on here. The one image that we just used for the frame, like a door frame look, we're going to use that underneath these yellow boots as if they're becoming kind of a little shadow. So there's a shadow underneath our boots there. And then we're also going to use that no matter the weather, we're in this together sentiment, and that's going to go right up here above the yellow boots. Okay, that's almost done. This piece is going to receive the sentiment that says, I believe in you. And we'll stamp that right in the center of that blue banner. And that one's almost done. See, these are super quick. This one here is going to get the sentiment that says, wishing you brighter days. And that's going to get stamped in the center up here, and those boots are going to go down there. We've also got a few more of these raindrops, and the raindrops are going to accent every one of these cards. So we can close this up. We'll put that out of the way, and we'll start decorating these little pieces here with the extra raindrops that we have. The raindrops have been added, and now we're just going to add dimensionals to certain pieces here. We're going to add it to the back of this circle, to the upper back portion of these boots and to the back side of the left area of that banner piece there. Then we're going to use the snail to add a little adhesive here, a little adhesive to the bottoms of these boots, and to the back side of our pink boots. So our pink boots are going to go onto our gray page, right in the grass, centered. The circle is going to go right above in the upper right. I think I'm going to shift these over a little bit. Maybe more to the left. There we go. And this piece is going to get the yellow boots. And so they look like they're standing on their shadow, which is what we want. But yet they have dimension to them because the upper portions of them are pushed outward a bit. And then this banner piece is going to come in from the right-hand side and have a shadow behind it right here. These bases are all going to get placed directly flat onto our cards. And here are the last three in that set of cards. I want to show you too, before I show you all of these 9 different cards that you can make with the pieces for 3. So these are the ones that I did with the envelopes, and when I originally did them, I did them with a slightly smaller border on the edge. So yes, you can adjust that border depending on what appeals to you. And here are all 9 of the finished cards. Remember that if you did this with your whole entire kit, you'd get 36 cards from the kit instead of just 12. And they'd be full size just by adding those silver edge cards and envelopes, 2 packs of those, and the Petal Pink ink pad. So another thing I want to mention before I move on to my other project is that this kit couldn't have come at a better time. The messages in here are very fitting for what is happening in the world as I'm recording this video. We're experiencing the pandemic of COVID-19, and a lot of us are in the midst of trying to experience social distancing, staying away from each other as much as possible to help curb that spread. And so what a great kit, because you can take and make a bunch of cards from these the kit supplies and send them to your neighbors, your friends, your loved ones, your family, and you know, just kind of brighten somebody's day in that way. The next project is also a day brightener that would be great to leave on a neighbor's doorstep with some little gifts and goodies inside. So let me show you that next. And on a side note, I've heard that if you can avoid licking your envelopes, that's great too. If you can just take and use like a paintbrush to wet the seal on your envelopes when you're sending off cards and bills and letters and all that stuff. I don't know, just curb on the side of safety. So we received this beautiful box with the kit, a special edition box. So I thought it'd be fun to take the actual box and the tissue paper that comes with it and grab just a piece of Whisper White cardstock. So this piece is 5 by 4 inches, and I've just scored it in the middle at 2.5 inches. I've used my bone folder to give it a really good crease, and I thought this would be great on the front of this box. You could tape it down with dimensionals, glue dots, snail, whatever. You might want to use dimensionals because we're going to put some twine around it to help hold it shut, and that way it won't be sitting popped open like this. Plus the twine kind of gives it an extra little bow, a little decoration on the top. So let's go ahead and take and decorate this card. I changed my mind on the twine. I decided I'm going to bring in one of my favorite ribbons again. This is the silver metallic edge ribbon, and it's got a little sparkle to it, so it's fun. Let's take those strips that we had cut off from making those 9 cards, and we're just going to run some snail adhesive along the back sides of them. Actually, I probably have too long of strips here, but we'll just trim them up as we go. So we're going to place one here. Actually, I might want to have the blues next to each other. I mean the gray in the middle. That's okay. We'll just leave it as is. So we've got some strips of color going down the left side of our card. We'll take our snips and trim off the excess. And then this ribbon is going to come across here. So if I kind of lay it there, I can see where I want to stamp my inside and outside messages. I'm going to use this one here. No matter the weather, we're in this together. So I'm going to stamp that right here. And then on the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp the wishing you brighter days ahead. And again, this would be a great little card attached to this box as a gift that you could, you know, leave on your neighbor's doorstep or whatever. Just to kind of brighten their day in the midst of what's going on in the world. So we now want to take this ribbon and tie it around, and we're going to get enough so that we can tie a bow. So let's see here. I'm going to cut it here, and then I'll tell you how much we've got. We've got 12 inches plus another 10, so about 22 inches of this silver metallic edge ribbon. And we'll just tie it on here like this before we attach it to our base, because we want the ribbon to be centered. So again, we're tying it first. Then we can adjust where the ribbon lies while it's got a bow on it. And then we can attach it. Okay, we're just going to position it a little bit further this way, like that. And let's adjust the size of the loops of the ribbon. So we'll go like this. And now we can flip it over and add our dimensionals. And you'll want to be covering on top of the ribbon so that it kind of holds that ribbon in place and doesn't make that disappear on you. You could actually put the dimensionals below as well if you are okay with your recipient, you know, taking the ribbon completely off. But this way, and if you leave the legs of the ribbon long enough, they can retie it. This way they can take and untie this, read the message inside. Of course, they've got their gift, right? So your gift would be in here with that beautiful blue tissue paper that comes with every paper pumpkin kit. And you could put, I don't know, all kinds of little things in there. Maybe you could put the remainders of your paper pumpkin kit in there so they could work on some crafting with the kids that they have in their house. Or maybe you can put in a bunch of cards that they can send to somebody else. Or, you know, some prepackaged food or something like that, just little treats, something. Anyways, that's one more idea, and I have one more for you. Okay, my last idea is inspired by this cute little gift that I got from a fellow demonstrator. I do not know who it was though, because I don't have the name on the inside anymore, but if it was you, thank you so much. I also have done little matchbox or matchbook type little gifts like this. In fact, I think with a past paper pumpkin kit, I did something similar. So we're going to use those Lifesaver mint candies that are individually packaged like this because they do fit really well into this size. I'm not sure what measurements that person used, but we will show you what I'm going to use here. So I think hers are a little different than mine. So we're going to cut our cardstock to 4 1/4 inches by 1 3/4 inches, and then we're going to score in from this side at 1 5/8 and at 2 inches. And then from the other direction, so coming this way, we're going to score at 3/8 of an inch, but it's easier to do it this way. So we're going to use this measurement here and score at 3/8 of an inch. Let's do that with a Whisper White piece as well, because I'm going to show you a couple different variations of this. Now we want to decorate these pieces. For this one, let's bring in our grid paper here. We're going to stamp that grass image. We're going to stamp with Pear Pizzazz, which is a coordinating green color. You may find this in a Past Paper Pumpkin kit, or you can get it in the online store. And so we're going to put a little bit of grass here, and we're stamping that grass in the large section right here. This will be the front cover. Just stamping it slightly below, so we have grass coming up like that. We're going to use a scrap piece of Whisper White, and we're going to use the basic gray and stamp that bunny image from the set, which is so adorable. And this we're going to fussy cut. And then on our white one, which is right here in this portion, we're going to stamp the pot of flowers. And it's not all going to fit in that space, so it's going to have to come a little bit below. We'll stamp that there. We're going to stamp a sentiment on the inside. No matter the weather, we're in this together. And then we're going to grab our petal pink ink again. And this image, which comes in the kit. So awesome. These are the flowers that you fill in. Now the issue is we don't have leaves, so we need to use a tool with our Pear Pizzazz ink. So we're going to close our lid, we're going to squeeze our pad together this way, and then when we open it up, we're going to get a little bit of color right there on the inside of the lid. So we can take a tool like a paintbrush, or this is a blender pen, and we're going to dip our pen right into that ink, and now we have instantly a green marker. And I colored a little bit messy on purpose. I wanted to go outside the lines to really make that green pop a little bit more. When you are done using a color with your blender pen, you just want to run it on your scrap paper until it runs clear. So I did the inside of the ears for the bunny, and I also did the bottom of the flower pot here. So our bunny's just going to get attached to here. We'll just do that directly with the glue dots in the kit or some snail adhesive. And keep in mind that part of the bunny is going to be not seen if it's too low. So you want to keep it up a little higher like that, because this is going to get attached here like so. So now we want to go ahead and staple. Actually, let's do one more thing of stamping in here. Let's grab that heart. We have a couple of them. Let's grab this little heart here and this one. So this would be a fun little extra Easter goodie that you could give to coworkers. We'll turn it over this way like that. I think I'll use this one because it's showing the plain side. I'm going to fold it down a little bit so it tucks in there better. And then, carefully, you want to staple in the middle. And I'm going to staple backwards. And the reason why I'm stapling backwards is because I don't want the staple to catch on anything. So when I close this and I place my cute little heart with a glue dot, right here, it's going to cover up, just like we had on this one here. It's going to cover up that staple. So now we have a cute little heart down there. On the inside we have even more hearts, and there is our finished little bunny matchbook. And on this one, we've got the fun well, not the fun sentiment, but the sentiment that says we're in this together, no matter the weather, we're in this together. And that's going to get stapled with the words lifesaver showing, because you have some people in your community that are really doing great things to keep things going for us while we're all experiencing as much social distancing as possible. People at the grocery stores, you know, people at the clinics and things like that. So if you are needing to go places and you want to leave some fun little candies for people, those might brighten some people's days. Let's add another one of these hearts here. You have some extra hearts that you're going to end up having in your kit. Otherwise, you could punch some out or stamp them and fussy cut them. Now that you've watched my video, I hope that you can see that there's so much more to these kits than meets the eye. With just a few extra supplies and some imagination, you can go beyond and make so much more with these super affordable kits. I hope you gained some inspiration from what I've shared. Thank you for watching. It builds creativity to think outside the box. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can catch more paper pumpkin videos that I've shared using past kits and more that I'll share with future kits. Also, be sure to visit my website at stampyourartout.com so that you can view close-up photos of these projects, see photos of other paper pumpkin kit ideas in future and past posts, and see many other great ideas that I share using Stampin' Up! Products. You'll find my direct website link in my description below. If you want to get spoiled with extra goodies, gifts, prizes, and extra exclusive paper pumpkin project ideas, remember to get your subscription started with me as your demonstrator, Rachel Tessman in Andover, Minnesota. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Now I'd like you all to go and stamp your art out. Bye-bye.